I thought I was dying. In fact, I was welcoming it. The beeping of the heart monitor was the only sound in the room, a rhythmic, mechanical countdown to the end of a life that had become too heavy to carry. I lay there, staring at the sterile white tiles of the ceiling, unable to move my left side, unable to speak, just listening to the fluids dripping into my arm. I wanted to close my eyes and let the darkness take me. Why would I want to wake up?
Who was waiting for me?
No one. My son, the boy I had starved for, the boy I had scrubbed other people's toilets for, had looked me in the eye just hours ago and told the world I was dead. He didn't just kill me in his heart. He buried me alive with his words. So, let the machine stop beeping. Let the silence come. But then, the door opened. It wasn't the nurse with the pitying eyes. It was the doctor. He didn't look like a man coming to pronounce a time of death. He looked terrified. He was holding a plastic vial of blood in one hand and a sealed document in the other. His hands were shaking. I watched him through half-lidded eyes as he walked to the side of my bed. He didn't check my vitals. He didn't check the 4-bag. He looked at my face, then at the paper, then back at my face with a kind of holy terror. He turned to the nurse standing by the door and said, "Lock the floor. Call security. No one enters this room. No one leaves." His voice was trembling. He leaned over me, close enough that I could smell the antiseptic soap on his skin. He didn't ask me if I was in pain. He whispered, "Ma'am, who are you?" Because I just ran your DNA against the police database for Jane Does, and it flagged a file from 1980. And then, God help us, it matched the sample from the penthouse suite upstairs. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry as dust. He continued, "You aren't just a woman who collapsed on the street, are you? The blood in your veins, it belongs to a ghost. It belongs to the Sterling family." I didn't know what he was talking about. I didn't care about Sterlings or billions. All I could think about was the look on Lucas's face when he saw me holding that tray of champagne. The look of disgust. To understand why I ended up in that hospital bed, broken and alone, you have to understand what I gave up. You have to understand the cost of a mother's love. I was 20 years old when my husband died in a factory accident. I had nothing but a 2-month-old baby and a mountain of debt. I didn't have parents to run to. I didn't have a safety net. I had Lucas. And for that boy, I became a machine. I stopped being a woman. I became a survival instrument. I worked 3 jobs. 3. I woke up at 4 a.m. to clean office buildings before the executives arrived in their shiny cars. Then I worked the lunch shift at a diner, standing on feet that were swollen and bleeding, smiling at customers who treated me like furniture. At night, I did security for a warehouse. I slept 3 hours a day for 18 years. Do you know what hunger feels like? Real hunger? It's not a rumbling in your stomach. It's a coldness in your bones. It's a fog in your brain. I lived on the crusts of Lucas's sandwiches. I ate his leftovers. If there was one piece of chicken, he ate it. If there was one glass of milk, he drank it. I told him I wasn't hungry. I lied to him every single day. "Mom isn't hungry, baby, you eat." That was my mantra. I wore the same winter coat for 12 years. I glued the soles of my shoes back together with superglue because I needed that $50 for his textbooks. I remember the winter of '98. The heating broke in our apartment. We couldn't afford to fix it. I took every blanket we owned and piled them on his bed. I slept in a chair in the kitchen, wearing 3 sweaters, shivering until my teeth rattled, just so he could be warm. And I was happy to do it, because he was smart. He was so smart. He used to draw buildings on the back of napkins. He said, "Mom, I'm going to be an architect. I'm going to build you a house. A big house with a fireplace and a garden, and you'll never have to work again." That promise kept me going. It was the fuel that let me scrub one more toilet, wash one more dish. I put every dime I saved into a coffee can, then a savings account. When he got into the university, I emptied it. All of it. my retirement, my emergency fund, my life. I gave it to him with shaking hands and said, "Go be great, Lucas. Make me proud." And he did. He graduated top of his class. He got a job at a prestigious firm in the city. And that's when the silence started. At first, it was subtle. He was too busy to come home for Thanksgiving. He had deadlines during Christmas. The phone calls went from every day to once a week to once a month. I told myself it was okay. He was building his life.
He was important now.
I didn't fit into his new world of glass skyscrapers and expensive suits. I was just the tired old woman with rough hands and a bad back. But a mother knows. A mother feels the distance before it's measured in miles. I started seeing pictures of him on social media. A neighbor showed me. He was at galas, on yachts, wearing tuxedos. And on his arm, there was always her.
Chloe.
The daughter of a real estate tycoon. A girl who looked like she had never touched a dirty dish in her life. Blonde, beautiful, and cold. I could see the coldness in her eyes, even through a photograph. I didn't want to intrude. I didn't want to embarrass him. But then Mrs. Higgins from down the hall knocked on my door. She had a newspaper in her hand and a look of pity on her face that I will never forget. "Martha," she said, "did you know?" She opened the paper to the society section. There was a picture of Lucas and Chloe. The headline read, "Architect Lucas Sterling to marry heiress Chloe Vance in lavish estate wedding." Sterling? His last name wasn't Sterling. It was my name. It was our name. He had changed it. And right there in the article it said, "The groom, an orphan who pulled himself up by his bootstraps after the tragic death of his parents." I stopped breathing. The room spun. Dead? I was sitting right there. I was drinking tea from a mug he gave me for Mother's Day 10 years ago. I was dead. He had killed me. He had erased me because I didn't fit the narrative. An orphan is tragic. An orphan is noble. A mother who cleans toilets for a living is just an embarrassment.
I didn't cry.
I couldn't cry. The pain was too deep for tears. It was a physical blow, like a knife twisting in my gut. I had to see him. I had to hear him say it. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe the newspaper got it wrong. I couldn't just sit there and let him bury me while I was still breathing. I found out where the engagement party was being held. It was at the Vance estate, a sprawling mansion with gates taller than my apartment building. I couldn't just walk in. I knew that. Security would take one look at my cheap shoes and turn me away. So I did the only thing I knew how to do. I went to the catering company entrance. I lied. I told them I was a replacement server sent by the agency. They were short-staffed, desperate. They threw a uniform at me, a black dress and a white apron. It was tight, and the shoes pinched my swollen feet, but I put it on. I smoothed my gray hair back. I picked up a silver tray of champagne flutes. And I walked into the lion's den. The party was a blur of diamonds and silk. The air smelled of expensive perfume and money. I kept my head down, weaving through the crowd, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. And then I saw him. He was standing near the fountain, holding a glass of scotch, laughing at something a man in a velvet suit was saying. He looked handsome. He looked like the prince I always knew he could be. But his eyes were hard. Chloe was next to him, her hand on his chest, claiming him. She looked like a porcelain doll, perfect and hollow. I walked closer. I couldn't help it. My feet moved on their own. I needed him to see me. I needed him to acknowledge that I existed. I stepped into their circle. "Champagne," I whispered. My voice was shaking. Lucas froze. He knew that voice. He had heard that voice sing him lullabies. He had heard that voice cheer for him at soccer games. He turned slowly, the smile sliding off his face like oil. His eyes met mine, and for a second, just a split second, I saw fear. I saw the little boy who used to hide behind my legs when it thundered. But then, the fear vanished, replaced by something much worse. Annoyance. Disgust. Chloe looked at me, her nose wrinkling. "Who is this?" she asked, her voice high and sharp. "Why is she staring at you, Lucas?" This was the moment of truth. He could have said, "This is my mother." He could have said, "This is the woman who saved me." He could have stepped forward and embraced me. I would have forgiven the lies. I would have forgiven the name change. I would have forgiven everything just to be held by my son. But he didn't. He took a sip of his drink, looked me up and down with a sneer that shattered the last fragments of my heart, and said, "I don't know her. She's just some clumsy servant. Look at her, she's trembling. She probably drank half the supply." I gasped. "Lucas." I pleaded, my voice cracking. "It's me. It's Mom."
Chloe laughed.
A cruel, tinkling sound. "Mom? Oh my God, Lucas, this old hag thinks she's your mother? That is hilarious. Your mother was a tragic beauty who died of consumption, not some cleaning lady." She stepped closer to me, her eyes glinting with malice. "Get away from us. You smell like poverty. It's ruining the wine." And then she did it. She pretended to stumble, her hand lashing out, knocking the tray from my hands. The glasses shattered on the stone patio. Champagne and glass went everywhere. But she wasn't done. She took her glass of red wine, a vintage that cost more than my monthly rent, and she poured it over my chest. The cold liquid soaked through the uniform, looking like blood. "Oops," she smirked. "Now you really look like trash. Security, get this filth out of here." I looked at Lucas. I waited for him to stop her. I waited for him to defend me. He just turned his back. He adjusted his cufflink and turned his back on the woman who gave him life. I gave him life and he gave me a death sentence. Listen to me closely. If you are listening to this and you have ever disrespected the woman who birthed you, you are cursing your own future. You are planting seeds of destruction in your own garden. Karma hears everything. It sees everything. Hit that subscribe button right now if you love your mother. Do not scroll past. If you scroll past this, you are inviting the same betrayal into your own life. Do you want your children to abandon you in your old age? Do you want to die alone in the rain while they drink champagne?
No?
Then subscribe and break the curse. If you won't subscribe, go to the comments and tell me why you think it's okay to leave a mother behind. Tell me why you think you are too good for the woman who wiped your tears.
I'll wait.
But be warned, life has a funny way of humbling the arrogant. 2 security guards grabbed my arms. They didn't ask me to leave. They dragged me. They dragged me through the garden, past the laughing guests who pointed and stared at the crazy old woman covered in wine. They dragged me to the front gates and threw me onto the wet pavement. It had started to rain. Of course it had. The universe loves a cliché. I lay there on the concrete, the gravel scraping my cheek, the rain mixing with the wine, and the tears on my face. I watched the gates close. I watched the lights of the mansion twinkling in the distance, warm and inviting, holding everything I ever loved inside, while I was left in the cold. I stood up.
I don't know how.
I started walking. I didn't know where I was going. I just walked. My chest felt tight. My left arm started to tingle. I ignored it. I thought it was just the heartbreak. A heart can only break so many times before it just stops. I walked for miles. My vision started to blur. The streetlights became streaks of light. And then, right in front of the Sterling Memorial Hospital, the irony, right? My legs gave out. The world tilted. The pavement rushed up to meet me. Darkness swallowed me whole. I thought that was the end. I prayed it was the end. But the doctor with the trembling hands and the look of terror, he was about to show me that God wasn't done with me yet. He was about to show me that while I was crying over a son who abandoned me, I was actually the queen of a kingdom I never knew existed. The Sterling family? I repeated the words, but they felt like stones in my mouth. I tried to sit up, but the doctor put a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Lie still, Miss Sterling," he said. "Miss Sterling." He didn't call me Martha. He didn't call me waitress or maid or hey you. He called me by a name that carried the weight of skyscrapers and steel mills. He explained it to me slowly, like I was a child, or maybe just someone whose reality had just shattered. He told me that 40 years ago, Elias Sterling's infant daughter was taken from her crib. A ransom was paid, but the baby was never returned. The kidnapper, a woman who worked in the laundry, took the money and the child, renamed her, raised her in a basement apartment, and took the secret to her grave. That woman was the only mother I had ever known. The woman who beat me when I didn't scrub the floors hard enough. The woman who told me I was worthless every day of my life until she died. I thought she was just cruel. I didn't know she was a criminal. I didn't know she had stolen a princess and turned her into a peasant. The doctor handed me a tablet. On the screen was a photo of an old man with eyes like steel, cold, hard, but with a flicker of sadness that looked exactly like the reflection I saw in the mirror every morning. This was Elias Sterling, the doctor said softly. He died 2 hours ago in the penthouse suite of this hospital. He spent 40 years looking for you. He hired private investigators. He set up DNA alerts in every major medical system in the country. He never gave up. In his will, he left a specific clause. If his daughter is ever found, she inherits everything. The company, the properties, the accounts, the entire legacy. I stared at the man in the photo. My father. A man who had billions while I was gluing my shoes together. A man who died alone upstairs while his daughter was dying alone downstairs. The irony was so bitter, I could taste it like copper on my tongue. I wasn't a discard. I wasn't trash. I was the owner of the very ground Lucas walked on. Within an hour, the room changed. The nurses who had looked at me with pity were replaced by lawyers in suits that cost more than my entire life's earnings. They didn't look at me with pity. They looked at me with fear. They knew that with one signature, I could fire them all. I could buy this hospital and turn it into a parking lot if I wanted to. They read me the list of assets. It was a blur of numbers. 3 billion in liquid assets. Real estate holdings in New York, London, Paris. A controlling interest in the city's largest bank. And the architectural firm, the firm where Lucas worked, the firm he bragged about. I owned it. I owned his boss. I owned his mortgage. I owned the very air he breathed. I started to laugh. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was a low, dark sound that made the lawyers shift uncomfortably in their chairs. Lucas thought he was climbing the social ladder. He didn't realize the ladder belonged to me. He had thrown his mother away to chase a fortune that was already his by birthright. If he had just been a decent human being. If he had just loved me, he would have been a prince. But he chose to be a snake, and snakes get crushed. They thought I was trash, but I was the owner of the landfill. Life changes in a second. You might be down today, crying on the bathroom floor, but God is preparing a table for you in the presence of your enemies. You need to claim this energy right now. I want you to press like on this video to claim your victory over your enemies. If you don't press like, you are telling the universe you accept defeat. You are telling the universe that you are okay with being the victim. Don't let your haters win. Press like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to lock in your blessing. Those who ignore this warning usually find out the hard way that when you reject power, power rejects you.
Do it now.
Claim your throne. The lawyers asked me what I wanted to do. Rest, they said. Recover. Recover? I had 40 years of rage to burn off. I didn't need rest. I needed revenge. I asked for a phone. A new one. Not the cracked burner phone I had in my pocket. They brought me the latest model. I typed in one name, Lucas Sterling. The search results filled the screen. Lucas Sterling and Chloe Vance to wed at the historic Sterling estate. The wedding was today. In 3 hours. They were getting married at my father's house. My house. The article gushed about the location. The Sterling estate, unoccupied since the reclusive billionaire's illness, will open its gates for the wedding of the season. Chloe's father had pulled strings. He had probably bribed someone to get access to the grounds, thinking the old man was dying and wouldn't notice. They were going to drink champagne on my lawn. They were going to dance in my ballroom. They were going to celebrate their union on the grave of the mother they thought they had buried. I swung my legs over the side of the bed. The dizziness was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. "I need clothes," I told the head lawyer. He looked confused. "Miss Sterling, you're not discharged." I looked at him. I channeled every ounce of Elias Sterling that was hiding in my blood. "I didn't ask for medical advice," I said, my voice dropping an octave. "I said I need clothes. Black. Silk. Something that looks like a funeral, but for someone else. And I need a car. No, I need a convoy. I need the police commissioner. I saw his name on the donor wall in the lobby. Call him. Tell him the owner of this hospital needs an escort." The lawyer scrambled to obey. I walked into the bathroom and looked in the mirror. The woman looking back at me wasn't Martha the maid. She wasn't Martha the doormat. Her eyes were hard. Her jaw was set. The wine stain was gone, scrubbed away by the nurses, but the memory of it burned on my skin. Chloe had poured wine on me to mark me as dirty. I was going to wash her out of existence. An hour later, I was dressed. The suit was Italian silk, tailored to perfection in record time. It felt like armor. I put on sunglasses, not to hide my eyes, but to hide the fire in them. I walked out of the hospital doors, and there they were. 5 black SUVs. A police escort with motorcycles. The lights were flashing. The sirens were ready to scream. The head of my security detail that sounded so strange, opened the door for me. "Where to, Miss Sterling?" he asked. I looked at the horizon, where the storm clouds were gathering over the hills, right where the Sterling estate sat, overlooking the city. "Take me to the wedding," I said. "I have an objection to make." The drive was silent. I didn't look at the city passing by. I looked at my hands. These hands had scrubbed floors until they bled. These hands had held Lucas when he had a fever. These hands had worked double shifts to buy him a bicycle he never rode because he wanted a better one. He had been ashamed of these hands. He had called me a clumsy servant. He was about to learn that these hands held the pen that signed his checks. We turned onto the private road leading to the estate. I saw the cars lined up, Bentleys, Rolls-Royces, Ferraris. The wealth was staggering. But it was all rented. It was all credit. It was all a facade. My wealth was in the ground. It was in the stone. It was real. We bypassed the line of cars. The security at the gate tried to stop us. A young man in a uniform stepped out, hand raised. My lead driver didn't even slow down. He flashed a badge and the gates opened. We drove up the winding driveway, past the fountains, past the manicured gardens where white tents had been set up. I saw the guests mingling. I saw the waiters moving through the crowd with silver trays, just like the one I had dropped. The car stopped right in front of the main entrance, blocking the path of the bride's limousine, which was just arriving. I waited. I didn't get out immediately. I watched. I saw Chloe get out of her car, her face twisted in anger. She was screaming at her driver. "Move this car."
Who is this?
Ruining my entrance. She looked beautiful in her white dress, a dress that probably cost more than I made in 10 years. But all I saw was a monster in lace. Lucas came running down the steps, looking worried. He was trying to calm her down. He looked at the black SUVs, confused. He didn't know who was inside. He thought maybe it was the police, or maybe a VIP guest. He straightened his tie, putting on that charming smile, ready to smooth things over, ready to lie. The door of my SUV opened. I stepped out. The click of my heels on the pavement was the only sound as the sirens cut off. I stood there, silent, imposing, surrounded by armed guards. Lucas squinted. He didn't recognize me at first. I wasn't wearing a maid's uniform. I wasn't hunched over. I was standing tall, draped in power. He took a step forward. "Excuse me," he said, his voice polite, deferential. This is a private event. I think there's been a mistake. I took off my sunglasses. I looked him dead in the eye. The color drained from his face so fast he looked like a corpse. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He staggered back, clutching the railing for support. "Mom," he whispered. It was a question, a plea, a prayer of disbelief. Chloe stopped screaming. She looked at me, then at Lucas. She recognized me too. The old hag she had thrown out. But I didn't look like a hag now. "Hello, Lucas," I said. My voice was amplified by the silence of the crowd that had gathered. "You forgot to send me an invitation. But that's okay. I decided to host the party myself." "What? What are you doing here?" Lucas stammered. You're supposed to be
Dead.
I finished for him. Or just gone. Invisible? You told them I was a drug addict. You told them I was dead. Well, resurrection is a funny thing, son. It tends to bring up all the buried sins. I walked up the stairs, my guards parting the crowd like the Red Sea. Chloe's father, Mr. Vance, stepped forward, his face red. "Now see here," he blustered. "I don't know who you are, but you're trespassing on private property. I rented this estate for my daughter's wedding. Security. Remove this woman." I laughed. It was dry and cold. "Rented?" I asked. "Mr. Vance, you didn't rent this estate. You bribed the caretaker to let you use the grounds because you thought the owner was dying in a hospital bed. You thought Elias Sterling was too weak to notice." I pulled the deed from my inside pocket, a copy the lawyers had prepared. I held it up. Elias Sterling is dead. That part is true. But the estate didn't go to the bank. It went to his heir. I turned to Lucas. "You wanted to be a Sterling so bad, Lucas? You changed your name. You stole the legacy. But you forgot one thing. Being a Sterling isn't about the name. It's about the blood. And you have my blood. But you don't have my heart. This is my house," I announced, my voice ringing out across the lawn. "And you are all trespassing." The silence was absolute. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. Lucas looked like a child who had dropped his ice cream. He looked at Chloe, desperate for her to fix it, but Chloe was looking at me with wide, terrified eyes. She knew. She realized that the woman she had poured wine on was the woman who could buy and sell her father 10 times over. "Mom, please," Lucas started, stepping toward me, his hands out. "Let's talk about this." I can explain. It was just complications. I didn't want to worry you." "Worry me?" I snapped. The anger flared hot and bright. "You didn't want to worry me? You threw me out in the rain. You watched her pour wine on me and you turned your back. Do not call me mom. You lost that right when you killed me in your stories." I turned to the head of security. "Cancel the wedding," I said, "and escort these squatters off my property. All of them." I let him cry in the rain, just like he left me. It was the hardest thing I ever did, but a lesson learned too late is a lesson that burns. Look at me. I am 60 years old, and I am finally free. Do not leave this video without subscribing. We are building a community of survivors here. If you are not subscribed, you are walking alone. And when the hard times come, and they always come, who will be there for you? Don't take the risk. Click the bell. And for those of you who refuse to subscribe, tell me in the comments, why are you afraid of the truth? Is it because you know you've treated someone badly? Let's talk about it. Because Judgment Day comes for everyone, just like it came for Lucas. The chaos that followed was a symphony of destruction, and I conducted every note of it. Watching the security guards, my guards, dismantle the wedding was like watching a house of cards collapse in slow motion. The white tents were pulled down. The tables laden with lobster and caviar were overturned. The guests, the cream of high society who had laughed at my uniform just hours before, were now scrambling into their cars, terrified of being associated with the disaster. Chloe was screaming, a high-pitched wail that grated on my ears. She was demanding her father do something, But Mr. Vance was too busy trying to save his own skin. He approached me, sweating profusely, wiping his forehead with a silk handkerchief. "Miss Sterling," he stammered, his voice trembling. "Surely we can come to an arrangement." I had no idea. If I had known you were Elias's daughter. We are business partners after all. My company has loans with the Sterling Bank. I looked at him. This man who had raised a daughter capable of pouring wine on an old woman had loans. I corrected him. Past tense. "I already made the call, Mr. Vance. The Sterling Bank is recalling all high-risk loans effective immediately. And given that you just trespassed on my property and assaulted the owner, I'd say you're a very high risk." He turned pale, clutching his chest, realizing that his empire was crumbling just as fast as his daughter's wedding cake. He didn't say another word. He just grabbed Chloe by the arm and dragged her toward his car. She fought him, screaming at Lucas. "Do something. Fix this. You said you were rich. You said you were an heir." Lucas stood there in the middle of the ruined lawn, the wind whipping his hair, looking from me to her. He was realizing that the golden ticket he had punched came with a price he couldn't pay. I didn't stay to watch them leave. I turned my back on my son for the first time in his life. I walked into the mansion, my father's house. It was vast, cold, and empty, filled with portraits of ancestors I never knew. I sat in the library, in a leather chair that swallowed me whole, and I waited. I knew he would come. I knew he wouldn't give up that easily. He was a survivor, just like me, but his survival was built on lies, while mine was built on endurance. The next morning, I didn't go to the spa. I didn't go shopping. I went to the architectural firm. The firm where Lucas was the star associate. The firm that my father secretly owned. I walked in wearing a suit that cost more than the car I used to sleep in. The receptionist tried to stop me, but the CEO came running out of his office. He knew who I was. The lawyers had briefed him. "Miss Sterling," he gasped, bowing slightly. "We are honored. To what do we owe the pleasure?" I walked past him, straight to the glass office in the corner. Lucas's office. He was there, packing a box. He looked terrible. His eyes were red. His tuxedo shirt from the day before was wrinkled and unbuttoned. He looked up when I entered, hope flaring in his eyes for a second. "Mom," he choked out. "Thank God. I knew you'd come. Look, I can explain everything. Chloe, her family, they put so much pressure on me. I had to fit in. I had to be someone else. But I did it for us. I was going to bring you in later, I swear. Once I was established." I listened to him lie. It was fascinating, really, watching the desperation twist his features. "You did it for us?" I asked calmly. "So, when you told them I was a drug addict, that was for me? When you let her call me trash, that was for my benefit?" "I was scared," he cried. "I was scared of losing everything. And now you have," I said. "You're fired, Lucas." He froze. "What?" "You can't. I'm the lead architect on the Skylark project. You can't just fire me. I own the building, Lucas. I own the firm. I own the desk you're sitting at. You are fired for gross misconduct and fraud. You lied on your employment application about your background. You claimed to be an orphan. That is falsifying records. Security will escort you out." I watched him leave the building, carrying a cardboard box, just like I had watched so many people leave their homes when the bank took them. But this time, I felt no pity. I felt only a cold, hard justice. Chloe left him 2 days later. Once the money was gone, once the job was gone, once the prestige was gone, her love evaporated like mist. She posted a statement on social media claiming she was a victim of his deception, distancing herself to save her own reputation. Lucas was alone. He tried to come to the estate a week later. It was raining again, a heavy, relentless downpour that washed the city clean. I saw him on the security cameras. He was standing at the main gate, soaking wet. He didn't have a car. It had been repossessed. He looked thin. He looked like the boy I used to feed my own dinner to. He pressed the intercom button. Mom, his voice crackled through the speaker. Mom, please. I have nowhere to go. Chloe kicked me out. I'm sleeping in a shelter. Mom, I'm sorry. Please just open the gate. I'm your son. I sat in the security room, looking at the screen. My hand hovered over the button to open the gate. Every instinct in my body, every maternal cell, screamed at me to let him in, to dry him off, to make him soup,
To tell him it was okay.
That was what Martha the maid would have done. But Martha the maid was dead. She died on the pavement outside the Vance estate. I pressed the talk button. The man at the gate claims to be my son. I said, my voice steady, though my heart was breaking into 1,000 pieces. But my son is an orphan. He told the world his mother was dead. He told the world she was a drug addict. I am just honoring his truth. Mom, don't do this, he sobbed. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. A mistake is forgetting to call on a birthday, I said. Erasing a person's existence is a choice. You made your choice, Lucas. You chose the Sterlings. You chose the money. Well, the money is behind this gate. And you are on the outside. You wanted to be a self-made man? Here is your chance. Go make yourself. I released the button. I watched him sink to his knees in the mud, sobbing into his hands. I watched him for an hour. And then I turned off the monitor. I didn't sleep that night. I cried until my eyes were swollen shut. But I didn't open the gate. I used the money. I used every cent of it. Not for yachts, not for parties. I opened a foundation called The Forgotten. We build housing for elderly parents who have been abandoned by their children. We provide legal aid for disinherited widows. I spend my days visiting the shelters, holding the hands of women who look just like I did, tired, worn out, discarded. I tell them my story. I tell them that they are not trash. And every time I save one of them, I heal a little bit of the hole Lucas left in my chest. Lucas is still in the city. I hear about him sometimes. He works at a small construction firm now, doing manual labor. He couldn't get hired as an architect. I made sure of that. He lives in a small apartment in the bad part of town. Sometimes I see him from the back of my limousine as I drive by. He looks older. He looks tired. He looks like he knows exactly what he lost. He didn't just lose a fortune. He lost the only person in the world who would have died for him. And that is the tragedy of greed. It blinds you to the gold you already have until you've thrown it away for brass. I am Martha Sterling. I am a billionaire. I am a philanthropist. But deep down, in the quiet of this big, empty house, I am still a mother grieving a child who is still alive. And that is a pain no amount of money can cure. So listen to me. Listen to the voice of a woman who has seen both the gutter and the penthouse. If you have someone in your life who loves you, a mother, a father, a partner, who sacrifices for you, do not take them for granted. Do not trade them for status. Do not trade them for a pretty face or a fat bank account. Because when the world turns on you, and it will, they are the only ones who will be standing there with an umbrella. But if you break them, if you push them too far, you might find that the umbrella is made of steel and the gate is locked forever. I want you to look at your life right now. Who are you neglecting? Who are you hiding? Who are you ashamed of? Go to them. Fix it. Before you end up on the wrong side of the gate, crying in the rain. Hit that subscribe button if you understand what I'm saying. Join us. Don't be like Lucas. Don't wait until you've lost everything to realize what mattered. And if you still think money is more important than loyalty, if you still think I was too harsh on my son, tell me in the comments. Tell me why you think betrayal deserves a second chance. But remember, the universe is listening. And karma never misses an address.